Omega Point has fallen, her allies are scattered, her loyalties tested, and the war is far from over. To win, Juliette will have to decide who she can trust and who she can't afford to lose. Juliette wakes to a ceiling she doesn't recognize. The sheets beneath her softer than anything she's slept on in months. Her body aches, but she's alive. The last thing she remembers is the chaos at Omega Point, the gunfire, the collapsing walls, the suffocating crush of dust and debris. When she tries to sit up, a sharp pull in her muscles makes her wince. That's when she hears a familiar voice. Warner steps into view, calm as if he's been expecting her to wake at this exact moment. He tells her she's in Sector 45, in his own quarters. Her heart slams against her ribs. She should be panicking, reaching for a weapon, demanding answers. But he doesn't look like a captor today. He looks steady, controlled. He says he found her in the aftermath unconscious and brought her here for her own safety. She doesn't know if she believes him. When she asks about Omega Point, his expression shifts, a shadow passing over his features. It's gone, he says, destroyed. The survivors scattered, if they survived at all. The words feel like ice in her veins. Adam, Kenji, castle gone? She refuses to accept it without proof, but the certainty in Warner's voice makes her chest tighten. Warner doesn't push her for gratitude. Instead, he tells her she has a choice. She can leave now and face the reestablishment on her own, or she can stay and use the resources of Sector 45 to strike back. He says they have a common enemy, his father, the Supreme Commander, and that working together might be the only way to bring him down. Juliette doesn't answer right away. She's not ready to admit that she might need him. The first time she leaves the room, she expects resistance from the soldiers in the hallway, but they don't stop her. They step aside. The respect or fear they show her is unsettling. She realizes Warner has told them she's under his protection. Every corridor feels like both an opportunity and a trap. Warner suggests they train together. He's seen her power, but he says she still hesitates when she should strike. Hesitation will get you killed, he tells her. She agrees, but only because she wants to know what he's really capable of and how far he's willing to go to win. The training room is stark and cold, the walls lined with reinforced panels. Warner doesn't waste time with warm-ups or small talk. He pushes her immediately, forcing her to channel her energy into precise, focused bursts. When she falters, he steps closer, his voice low but insistent. You're not fragile, Juliette. Stop acting like you are. The frustration in his tone lights a fire in her, and for the first time, she feels the full force of her power crackle at her fingertips. That night, alone in the quiet of Warner's quarters, she lets herself grieve. She pictures Adam's face, Kenji's smirk, Castle's steady calm, all swallowed by the destruction. She doesn't know if they're alive. She makes herself a promise. If they are, she'll find them. And if they're not, she'll make the reestablishment pay for every life they've taken. The next morning, Warner brings her a report sightings of possible survivors. Among them, Kenji. Her chest tightens with relief. She demands to know where he is, but Warner warns her it could be a trap. Still, she's already decided. If Kenji's alive, she's going to him. She dresses in the gear Warner provides. Black fitted, built for movement. It feels like armor. As she straps on the holster, she catches Warner watching her, his expression unreadable. They leave before dawn, the cold air biting against her cheeks. She doesn't look back at the Sector 45 compound. Her eyes are on the horizon. The journey through the snow is silent except for the crunch of boots and the whisper of wind. Warner leads the way, his movements precise, efficient. Juliette tries not to think about how much she's relying on him. They reach the outskirts of a half-collapsed warehouse, and before she can call out, a blur of motion tackles her to the ground. She's halfway to striking when she hears the laugh, Kenji's laugh. He pulls her into a hug so tight she almost can't breathe. Inside the warehouse, the heat from a small stove barely touches the chill in the air. Kenji fills her in between. Mouthfuls of canned food. Yes, he survived. Yes, there are others. No, Omega Point isn't coming back. His grin fades when he talks about the attack. Too many people didn't make it out. Warner keeps to the shadows, silent but watchful, his presence making Kenji bristle. Kenji doesn't waste time letting his opinion be known. You brought him? He demands, jerking his chin at Warner. Juliette says she trusts Warner, or at least trusts that their goals align for now. Kenji mutters that this is the worst idea she's ever had. Warner doesn't rise to the bait, which somehow makes Kenji angrier. Kenji hesitates before telling her the part she's been afraid to hear. Adam is alive. Juliette's chest tightens. He's staying with a small group of survivors in a nearby safe house, but Kenji warns her that things aren't the same as they were. Adam's not the same. She says she still has to see him. The safe house smells faintly of wood smoke and damp clothes. Adam is at the far end of the room when she walks in, his eyes locking on hers like a physical blow. For a moment, they just stare. Then he turns away. The coldness in his voice when he finally speaks is worse than any injury. He tells her she should have stayed away, that things have changed, that she's changed. The conversation spirals fast, Adam accusing her of siding with Warner, of forgetting what the reestablishment did to them, of choosing a war over the people who love her. Juliette tries to explain that she's trying to fight for them, but every word seems to make the wall between them higher. When she leaves, she feels like she's lost him all over again. Back at the warehouse, Kenji finds her staring into the dying fire. He tells her not to let Adam's bitterness break her focus. "We've all lost too much," he says, "but you can't fight a war if you're too busy patching up old wounds." His words sting, but she knows they're true. Warner doesn't ask about Adam. Instead, he pushes her harder in training. Every session is a battle not against him, but against herself. He forces her to break through her hesitation, to stop apologizing for her strength. By the end of the week, her control is sharper. She can focus her power into bursts, directing it exactly where she wants it to go. One evening after training, she catches Warner watching her with an expression she can't place, not desire, not pity, but something more complicated. He tells her she's stronger than she realizes, and that she's the only one who can do what's coming next. For a second, she sees him not as the commander of Sector 45, but as someone carrying his own weight of loss. Warner lays out the plan. They'll need to hit the reestablishment's communications hub in Sector 45 to cut off contact with the Supreme Commander before their next offensive. It's dangerous, but if they succeed, it could buy the resistance valuable time. Juliette agrees without hesitation. The night air is razor sharp, cutting into Juliette's cheeks as she and Warner move toward the Sector 45 communications hub. Kenji's invisibility cloaks them just long enough to get past the outer patrols. Once inside, they split Kenji to disable the security system, Juliette and Warner to plant charges on the primary relay towers. The building hums with electricity, every step echoing on the polished floors. Juliette's senses are on high alert. She feels the weight of the mission pressing on her chest. They're halfway to the relay room when two soldiers turn the corner. Warner reacts instantly, taking one down with a sharp, precise strike. The other raises his weapon, but Juliette is already there, her bare hand clamping over his throat. She feels the jolt of his life draining away and forces herself to let go before it takes too much. Warner's gaze meets hers for just a moment. No judgment, no fear, only approval before they keep moving. The relay room is a cavern of humming servers and blinking lights. Warner hands her the small explosive devices, their timers already set. She moves quickly, attaching them to the main conduits while he covers the door. When the last one is in place, they retreat into the shadows, waiting for Kenji's signal. A faint crackle comes over their earpieces, Kenji's voice, whispering, "That security is down." Warner nods once, and they're on the move, slipping back into the hallways with the precision of a well-rehearsed team. But the moment they reach the main doors, the alarms blare. Backup generators have kicked in, reactivating the security grid. They break into a sprint, dodging gunfire that ricochets off the metal walls. Kenji reappears just long enough to shove a soldier aside before vanishing again. Warner fires controlled shots over his shoulder, herding Juliette toward the exit. They dive into the cold night just as the charges detonate. The building behind them erupts in a flash of orange, the towers collapsing into a storm of sparks and twisted steel. They don't stop running until they're deep in the ruins on the outskirts of the sector. The air is thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. Warner leans against a wall, catching his breath. Juliette's pulse is still racing, the adrenaline making her hands tremble. When he tells her she did well, the warmth in his voice catches her off guard. Back at their hideout, the tension between them lingers. Not the sharp, combative kind from before, but something heavier, charged. Warner moves closer, his voice low when he tells her she's not just strong, she's extraordinary. She should pull away, but she doesn't. His presence is steadying in a way she can't explain, even to herself. Kenji barges in before the moment can deepen, grinning despite the exhaustion in his eyes. He says the mission was a success. Communication in Sector 45 is down, at least temporarily. But he also warns that Adam's group is moving, and not toward them. Juliette's relief at hearing Adam's name is quickly shadowed by a new worry. Warner wants to push the advantage, striking more reestablishment resources while they're cut off. Juliette agrees in principle, but she also feels the pull to find Adam and the survivors before they get caught in the next wave of attacks. It's the first real point of friction between her and Warner since they began working together. Juliette lies awake, the faint hum of the ruined city outside their window. She thinks about Adam's voice, Warner's hands, Kenji's loyalty, and the constant hum of war in her veins. She's starting to realize she can't fight every battle at once, but choosing which ones to fight might change everything. Juliette leaves before sunrise with Kenji at her side. The air is brittle with cold, every breath a visible cloud in the dim light. They follow tracks through the snow to an abandoned farmhouse where Adam's group has been sheltering. When she steps inside, the quiet hits her first, a kind of stillness that feels heavier than silence. Adam is by the window, his rifle across his lap. His eyes meet hers, but there's no warmth there. She tells him about the communications hub, about Warner's role in the mission, about the progress they've made in striking the reestablishment. Adam's jaw tightens with each word. Finally, he says what's been simmering beneath the surface. You trust him more than you trust me. Juliette denies it, but even to her own ears, it sounds weak. Adam's voice rises as he accuses her of forgetting who Warner is, what he's done. The argument turns sharp. Adam says he can't watch her get pulled into Warner's orbit, can't be part of whatever she's becoming. Juliette tells him she's fighting to win, not to keep living in the ruins of what they used to be. The silence that follows is worse than the shouting. When she leaves, Adam doesn't try to stop her. On the way back, Kenji says he's not surprised. You two were never going to work in the middle of a war, he tells her. He wants to hold on to what's gone. You're looking at what's next. She doesn't answer, but the truth of it settles deep in her chest. When she returns to Warner, she expects questions, maybe even gloating. But he simply asks if she's ready for what comes next. She nods. There's no judgment in his eyes, only focus. They train harder than ever that night, her movements sharper, his instructions relentless but precise. For the first time, she feels like she's exactly where she needs to be. Warner outlines the strategy. They'll coordinate with a network of small resistance cells to attack multiple reestablishment outposts at once, drawing forces away from the Supreme Commander's stronghold. While the chaos unfolds, Juliette, Warner, and Kenji will infiltrate Sector 45's command center. The goal isn't just to kill the Supreme Commander, it's to dismantle his control entirely. That night, Warner finds her in the war room, studying maps. He steps close enough that she can feel the heat of his presence. His voice is low when he says, I've always believed in you. Even when you didn't. Something shifts in her. Then not just trust, but the certainty that they're fighting the same war, for the same reasons. The hours before the mission are tense. Weapons are checked, routes memorized, contingencies discussed. Kenji cracks jokes to keep the mood from sinking, but Juliette can feel the current of anticipation running through all of them. She lies down for a few hours of rest, but her mind keeps replaying Warner's words. Before dawn, they move. The snow underfoot is crisp, the horizon barely touched with light. Each step feels like a countdown. The sound of distant gunfire already carries on the wind. The resistance cells are making their moves. Juliette tightens her grip on her weapon. Today, she intends to end this. They reach the outer wall of the command center. Kenji slips ahead, invisible, disabling the alarms. Warner signals her forward, and together they slip inside, the halls ahead of them leading toward the man who's been at the center of everything. The command center is a maze of steel corridors, every corner a possible ambush. Juliette moves, in sync with Warner, her senses sharpened to every sound. The echo of boots, the faint hum of machinery, the low murmur of voices behind closed doors. Kenji's updates crackle through their earpieces, guiding them toward the Supreme Commander's office. They turn a corner and come face to face with a squad of elite reestablishment guards. There's no time for hesitation. Warner fires. Juliette launches herself forward, the impact of her power sending bodies crashing into the walls. The hallway shakes under the force of her strikes. When the last guard falls, Warner glances at her with something like pride in his eyes. The Supreme Commander's door looms at the end of the hall, reinforced and imposing. Warner steps forward, keycard in hand. He hesitates for only a moment, just long enough for Juliette to see the tension in his jaw before swiping it. The lock disengages with a click that feels louder than a gunshot. Inside, the Supreme Commander Warner's father sits behind a sleek black desk, his hands folded like they've been waiting for this exact meeting. His gaze moves over Juliette with calculated interest, then settles on Warner. He greets his son with cold amusement, remarking on his choice of company. Juliette feels the energy building in her palms, but she forces herself to wait. The Supreme Commander speaks with the calm cruelty of someone who believes he cannot lose. He calls Juliette a distraction, says Warner is wasting his potential, and warns that the reestablishment's reach extends far beyond Sector 45. Warner's replies are measured, but there's venom under every word. He tells his father the reestablishment is rotting from the inside and that Juliette is proof. When the Supreme Commander dismisses her as a little girl playing soldier, something inside Juliette snaps. She steps forward, her voice steady as she tells him she's not here to play, she's here to take everything from him. His smirk fades. In that moment, she knows there's no turning back. Juliette moves. The desk splinters under her touch, the floor cracking as the shockwave tears through the room. The Supreme Commander staggers, drawing a weapon, but she's already there, one hand gripping his arm, the other pressing to his chest. The power surges through her, burning and blinding, until he crumples to the ground. The room is eerily quiet. Warner stands over his father's body, his face unreadable. Kenji's voice comes through the earpiece asking if it's done. Warner answers yes, his tone flat. Juliette feels the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. The man who's been the shadow over all their lives is gone, but the war isn't over. They move quickly, retracing their steps through the corridors. Outside, the snow is falling again, soft and soundless. The air feels different, not lighter exactly, but charged with possibility. Kenji joins them, his grin wide when he sees they're alive. Guess we're still in business, he says. Back at their safe house, the survivors gather to hear the news. Some cheer, some cry, some just sit in stunned silence. Juliette looks around the room and sees not just soldiers, but people who've chosen to keep fighting. She meets Warner's gaze across the room. There's no smile, no words, but the connection is solid, unshakable. The reestablishment isn't finished, but neither is she.